There's a lot of misconceptions about this game, the most common of which are usually talking about the speed of combat being slow, how grindy the game is, and of course, how common blades are trash. I can't tell you how many playthroughs I end up watching on Twitch that will just immediately swap out any common blades they have for rare blades on their casual playthroughs without considering what each blade actually offers to you. Just because a blade is a rare blade does not automatically make it better than a different option. Having a good understanding of how the combat system actually works will often let you beat the game any way you choose, as long as you can properly equip yourself and play the fights in a smart way. In this playthrough of the game, I, Enel, your favorite speedrunner and Xenoblade content creator, will attempt to do something that seems absolutely insane. I will try to beat the entire game only using a single common blade in combat. I will be taking advantage of other blades for their field skills and stats mods as needed, however. So there will be a few exceptions to this rule. The first being, of course, a section of the game before we are allowed to pull blades, so everything up until after the Bridget fight will be using either no blade or Pyra. After we pull our common blade, there is one fight in Chapter 7 where we will be forced to use Numa no matter what, and cannot swap blades or even die, meaning we have to do the fight without our common friend. Otherwise, the only blade I will personally use in combat is a singular common blade. As for the other restriction, I will not be using any party members unless I am forced to. Up until the end of Chapter 3, I am not allowed to remove Tora and Nia from my party, and in Chapter 8, I am unable to remove Jen from my party. This means they will have to be present for those fights, but in the interest of limiting their usefulness as much as possible, I will be removing their driver combo arts and not equipping any aux cores, accessories, or pouch items on them. In Chapter 3, I will also be replacing Nia with Vandom so I cannot be healed at all except by myself, and I will also not use their specials at all in any battle except in the chain attacks I am required to have them in my party. I want to limit their usefulness as much as possible so I can attempt to beat the entire game with only the strength of a single common blade. As a final restriction, I want to limit grinding as much as possible and beat the game in a decently fast fashion. If I was able to grind infinitely, then yeah, I could eventually destroy the game after getting to level 99, but that's not really a lot of fun. I like to be around or lower than the level of the story enemies I am facing. My goal for this was under 15 hours. It is worth noting I did the entire thing on stream in 2 days, and if you're interested in my stream, it is twitch.tv/Enel. I finally have the real Enel name now, and you can also find that in my video description. So with that out of the way, this playthrough starts out as normal with me going through the game up until the point where I'm allowed to pull blades. At this point, I will use the extra cores I obtained from the DLC in order to try to find the best common blade option available. You could do this without DLC, but of course you may not get the type of common blade you need, and you might have to reset everything. DLC just makes it a lot easier to fish for something that's going to be useful to us. Ideally, there are 4 important factors we need to consider during this run. The first is how can we heal ourselves. The blade I obtain needs to be able to heal. The second is how tanky can we be. The blade needs to be able to survive attacks over the course of the run, and damage needs to be limited. The third is, of course, how much damage can we do. Ending fights faster means less issues during the fights themselves, and having more damage helps makes everything go much smoother and easier. The final factor is can we provide a way to get ourselves extra experience during battles. This means either through fusion combos or chain attacks overkills. So with all of that in mind, the type of blade we're looking for is going to be a katana blade. The katana blade has good tank stats as well as an evasion art to dodge the most dangerous attacks during this run, and this is going to be essential to success. Additionally, it is one of the only weapons on Rex that can provide its own break art for fusion combos, and it has a high critical hit rate tier which I can use for critical healing with certain accessories. As far as damage, that will usually depend on the element type and skill tree of the blade I pull. For this blade, I end up getting this dark katana blade named Kiko. The dark element will allow me to combo into myself for a level 3 blade combo, which is great, and the skill tree this blade has was excellent. Air Slash is a very good special that will increase damage to people targeting me and could be leveled up to level 5, and 2 of my battle skills were Vendetta and Challenger. Vendetta will increase damage to enemies targeting me, which will usually be everyone, and Challenger will increase my damage to higher level enemies, which will be a consistent factor throughout the run. And if that wasn't enough, Kiko has 3 aux core slots, meaning I have a lot of additional things I can do with her to make her more powerful and useful in the run. This common blade right here can outdamage most of the rare katana blades in this game, believe it or not. The only issue Kiko seemed to have was an affinity chart that would be difficult to max, but that isn't really an issue at this time. I use the love source to get her up to A rank trust and equip the wing chip for now so I can have an easier time with the upcoming Crabble fight. For my arts, I use the break art, the evasion art, and feral blade because its lower cooldown will allow me to get specials up faster. For my pouch items, I will use Narcissus Jelly to get my arts up even sooner. For early accessories, it does not matter all that much, but I'll be using an eye patch obtained from a chest in Gormott, and an infantry vest for extra HP that you can get on the Titan battleship. After defeating the Crabble is when I'll have to start making more preparations. I need to develop some of Tora's field skills, so I'll give him a love source to open up Poppy's chart, and then I'll go talk to 20 Napon to get Napon Wisdom level 2. You can do this by talking to the same 2 Napon over and over. Afterwards, I'll give him 2 roly-poly maracas and 4 general food items to unlock Leaping level 2 and Super Strength level 2. Afterwards, I can open up this chest on the roof of Torgoth to get a wood chip. This is a very nice core chip that will increase the power of our katana blade pretty significantly early on. The last thing I should note is that I put an amethyst chip on Pyra, which will get Rex's agility up to 50 even if she is not active. Very useful for some extra survivability. With our preparations complete, we set off to rescue Nia and have a pretty easy time defeating the soldiers on board the ship. With this fight done, we're able to also have a similarly easy time with Dougal thanks to our very strong damage we have at this point in the game. Afterwards, I get a pouch expansion and place a Whisper Quarter in it for some additional special recharge for the chapters ahead. The final boss of Chapter 2 is Morag, and once again she proves to be no threat to our current level of damage. With me setting up my own break, I combo it into my level 2 blade combo called Black Abyss and melt straight through her health bar. Chapter 3 is where the run will start to get more difficult. I initially was going to grind for a classic metal and honeypot grotto from these enemies that drop it, however getting the accessory was gonna take a while and I was made aware that you can get a classic metal from a chest at some point in Araya, thus I decided to wait until then. One thing I did end up doing before fixing the boat and heading to Araya was killing this unique monster, Moonlighting Elwyn. He will always drop Affinity Max Attack 1, so I decided to grab this and craft it for the 30% damage boost it offers upon reaching max affinity. From here, I'm safe to set out to Araya and prepare to fight Vandam, Yu, and Zuo. We have pretty much no issues, and I'm able to take them out one by one without really having any difficulties. From here on, Vandam will join the party and I'll be able to use him instead of Nia for the rest of Chapter 3, thus making sure I have no way to heal outside of what I can do for myself. I'll be replacing her after the rampaging Arden fight and slotting Tora into the party. This fight itself is very easy and straightforward, especially since I have a 100% break chance so I can easily get some extra fusion damage for the kill. I have a pretty rough time in the Elder Arachno fight, but don't end up wiping here, but that's likely because I had Tora to tank some extra damage for me. If he wasn't here, I'd likely have to use Zombie Hover to get the medal earlier to make sure I can heal properly. Luckily, I'm able to get the last bit of damage I need as I end up dying myself, and since Vandam himself is still alive, it counts as my kill. The next fight is Akos, and it's going to be one of the only times I chain attack with a party during the run. I don't really have the damage or healing to deal with him currently without taking advantage of the already placed orb on him, so I end up chain attacking him both to kill him and to get some extra experience for the fights ahead. This is one of the only times I will use any ally specials during this run. After the Akos fight, I can see I'm going to need a way to heal myself before the Zeke fight. As such, I take advantage of a technique known as Zombie Hover. By pressing all 4 trigger buttons, X, and down on the D-pad for 5 seconds, I can automatically die. By timing these same button presses while I'm respawning, I can respawn in a state of death while still being able to move around. This will allow me to survive fall damage and reach the lower level of Araya's stomach before fighting Zeke. By doing this, I can walk all the way to the location the treasure chest I need is and pick up the classic medal. This is going to allow me to heal every time I get a critical hit. I also equipped the auto balancer for now so I don't have to worry about enemy block rate affecting my combos. With these new accessories equipped, I'm able to make quick work of Zeke's health bar and keep myself healthy at the same time to easily dispatch him. From here, I get to make my way all the way to the Orion capital where I get to fight another easy enemy, the Violent Driver. After using a level 3 combo and getting a fusion kill, he goes down pretty easily with only one attempt. The next fight is one of the 3 most difficult parts of this run. Even with party members doing a little extra, Makos ends up being a massive pain with me being unable to keep up with the necessary healing and damage I needed in order to push through the first phase. I ended up dying multiple times trying to get through this phase, and even with allies being there to actually revive me mid-fight, which I won't have after this chapter, the fight continues to kick my butt. It seems like I'm gonna have to finally do a bit of grinding or at least change up my strategy if I want to have a chance of getting through this fight. So that's exactly what I end up doing. I notice one of my issues in this fight is that I can't seem to get good enough accuracy to consistently hit my enemies, so I end up fighting these Turkans back in Gormott so they'll drop a Night Vision Aux Core. This will give me better chances at hitting my enemies at nighttime, thus I can use more arts and also get more chances to heal. Well, I try this, but I still can't quite get what I need for Phase 1 to work, So I employ another strategy, which is to build up my party meter before the fight itself, so I'll be able to go use a chain attack against Akos to guarantee I can dodge something bad, or win the fight if I can set up an extremely fast orb. This ends up being exactly what I need to guarantee a fight victory, although this does mean I have to use my allies' specials on the chain attack since I cannot equip them yet. With Phase 1 over, I celebrate and watch the cutscene afterward to see the introduction to my favorite character, Morytha, but sadly I cannot use her in the upcoming fight. Naturally, because I cannot use her, this fight is going to be even more difficult because I can't just get an enemy to half HP this time. I gotta finish off Akos and kill all of Malos, and this is going to seem to be the hardest part of the run for sure. Since Phantom died last cutscene, I only have Tora in the party now also. Luckily, in order to limit the damage of this fight, I am able to lure Makos off the cliff that Morytha destroyed before equipping my weapon and starting the fight. Since I will automatically get Morytha at the start of this fight, I have to wait after this for my blade to cool down to switch to Kiko, and that is when it's just going to be a clean 1v1 against Akos. And while he did prove difficult a couple times, I am eventually able to win the fight and finish the chapter. With Chapter 3 done, I can finally dequip all of my party members and start the true Blade solo for the rest of the run. But let me tell you, Chapter 4 is easily the hardest chapter in this run. There's a lot of very difficult fights and our damage and healing isn't quite reliable enough. Furthermore, I cannot complete Kiko's chart for a power boost yet thanks to hidden affinity node requirements and the fact I need to do 16 Merc missions for another node. With these things in mind, I keep going, hoping that I'll be able to manage through the chapter. Before doing any fights, I pick up a Hunter's Chemistry Aux score to put on an inactive blade for the increase to Kiko's starting affinity in fights. Luckily for us, the first few fights of this chapter aren't too bad at all. We just have to casually kill some children's pets, and then defeat some bandits who aren't all that powerful or tanky either. It seems like I might have a much easier time now that I'm past Makos, but then we get to the fight that's the second of the 3 really difficult fights for this run, Lailah. Even after resting up at the inn, I'm getting slapped by her. No amount of healing I have can really keep up with the damage she's dealing to me, and it's gonna be a difficult fight for sure. It seems like I may even have to grind for this, but then I remember another pretty good strategy you can use besides crit healing, agility. I decided it would be a good idea for me to stack up my agility as much as I can, so I go to this quest to get a free amethyst chip to put on Morytha for plus 50 agility, and then I equip Percival for his agility mod and go grind 2 pentagon chips off of these hard crabbles in Gormont. This will give me plus 50 agility to katana weapons so I can put this on both Percival and Kiko to increase my agility quite a bit. And despite both being dark katanas, Kiko is actually a much better blade than Percival. With all of my extra agility, I make my way back to Lailah, and I'm still having problems. After dying a few more times, it seems like this could end up being the end of the run, but I decide to grind for a certain skill called Arch Chain. This allows me to cancel my arts into each other and could drastically help in a fight like this since I'll be able to use 2 desserts and have my evasion art up more, use my arts more to heal faster, and all around get my specials up even more. After getting some secret areas and locations along with doing another quest for 200 skill points, I finally have the required SP to get Arch Chain. I equip Sky Jewel Tart and the other pouch for even more art recharge and make my way to fight Lailah again after leveling up some more. Even with all of this, I end up dying a few more times because Lailah appears to be just that powerful. However, I keep getting closer and eventually I get a fight where everything goes my way and I'm able to defeat her. This fight was by far the biggest barrier in this run and the fight I died the most on. Being able to beat this was very satisfying and was going to help me push through the rest of the chapter. Now after this you had to fight Morag right afterward, and while on the speed run she's much tougher than Lailah, it was actually the opposite here. I was able to defeat her first try with minimal difficulty because of course that's just how this is going to work. With all that being done, I begin my search for Lailah and eventually uncover the mystery of the old factory. On my way there I have to fight Zeke again and I'm able to take him down pretty easily with a standard level 3 combo and a bit of extra after that. No real difficulty in this fight to speak of. Now after the Zeke fight, we enter the old factory and have to fight these extremely easy 4 Turken, but after that we get to fight Lailah again, wouldn't you know. This time around I'm a bit stronger though, so I think I'll be fine because she doesn't change all that much or so I thought. As it turns out, after enraging in this fight she gets spike damage. This extra damage is going to make healing through her damage too difficult, so after dying I craft a spike defense aux core I picked up and go back to fight her again. After making this change, I'm actually able to defeat her on my second try. The next major fight is Rosa right afterward. Rosa attacks much slower than Lailah and isn't nearly as threatening. After the first phase of the fight, I accidentally forgot to remove Tora, who rejoins the party, so I let him die at the start and then fight Rosa myself. Towards the end of the fight, I leave her with a small fraction of HP so I can get a chain attack overkill for some much needed extra experience. After only one attempt, Rosa ends up falling. From here, I fight the final boss of Chapter 4, and it ends up being more complicated than I would have liked. This fight is against Petroka and Mikhail. The first phase is easy enough, able to just push through Mikhail's health bar. The second phase, however, you have to deal with many strong attacks you need to be able to avoid, like Stellar Explosion and 100 Flame. After a couple attempts, I equip myself with some spring shoes for a little extra agilities, and I'm able to almost win the fight before getting trolled near the very end by Petroka, who doesn't have that much health left. Naturally, after this, I keep trying after, but keep having issues in this fight that leads to me being unable to heal as much as I would need to due to having a lower crit rate of the Pentagon chip and not having quite enough agility to survive and dodge every attack. It seems like I need to change something up, so I do. I go get this treasure chest in the corner of the upper level of the waist of Morytha and grab some shell shoes which increase my agility by another significant amount. With this extra evasion, the fight shouldn't be nearly as much of an issue anymore. After making this change and a couple more attempts, I'm able to push through the fight and finish it. 6.5 hours later, I made it to the halfway point of the run essentially. I called it a day on my stream since I was tired, and later on during the day I started up Ursula's quest so I had access to very short merc missions that would allow me to finish that one problematic node on Kiko's chart. After that was done, the only node I had left was still a node I didn't know the requirement for, so I still could not max Kiko until later. Luckily in Chapter 5 we'll get a significant power boost another way, so it will not matter all that much. In fact, the run gets much easier from here on out. Chapter 4 was definitely the hardest part. Chapter 5 starts off with a leisurely walk through Letheria, and nothing notable really happens. The next thing of note is the fight against Zeke before going to Enel. Make sure to use evasion on Sonic Thunder Slash, and he's really not all that tough to take down. From there we head to Enel where nothing notable happens, and finally to Temperantia. In Temperantia, we're going to be taking advantage of that zombie hover technique to skip a cutscene trigger that will trigger a death plane on the lower level. By doing that, we can access the lower level early and go all the way across the map to Jagron Citadel, where we can pick up a treasure chest that has 3 shining star chips in it. As you can see here, the core chip is going to give us a massive power boost and a boost to our crit rate for better healing at the cost of some agility that we will not need nearly as much anymore. From here, we can head back to the cutscenes and prepare for the fights. Make sure to put spike defense on for the wires who can do a huge amount of spike damage to you after enraging. All 3 of these end of chapter fights are extremely straightforward, and I'm just able to rely on me using blade combo damage and multiple air slashes to kill all 3, and I'm able to beat it first try without much difficulty. Save your evasion art for Razor Thread and Blast Hammer along with Jin's Skyward Slash and Heavenly Disrupt, and you'll have virtually no issues at all. The extra damage makes these fights not really that difficult to get through, and we're able to push through the end of chapter 5 pretty easily. Chapter 6 starts out with some more boring Enel related stuff. After walking around for an eternity, we learn some information about Bana and his plans and decide we need to go stop him. The first obstacle in our path are these innocent Turkin chefs that we thought were poisoning some food. After murdering chefs that did absolutely nothing wrong and getting no repercussions for our actions, we get to fight Giga Rosa, who is just Rosa with a G on her forehead. Giga Rosa goes down pretty easily as long as we kill the bomb she summons and evade any dangerous attacks she might be able to use. I use a chain attack near the end to try to get a little bit of overkill bonus in this fight for the extra experience. With that done, I'm able to head to Tantal. As for the 4, there isn't much notable about Tantal. I make my way to Theoswar and have an easy time defeating some required soldiers, and then make my way all the way down the mountain to head to the head of the continent. There I get to fight Petroka, Akos, and Mikhail one final time. Surprisingly, while this fight ended up being pretty long, I was able to complete it first try since they don't really deal all that much damage, and my current levels of agility and critical healing allowed me to remain healthy. Afterwards, I get to fight Jin for 20% of his health bar, and I'm easily able to take this down by evading Heavenly Disrupt and using a chain attack to make him fall. In Chapter 7, we lose access to Pyra and Mithra, which does not really affect anything at all. We have less agility, but lucky for us, it shouldn't really matter a ton in this chapter. We make our way through the Spirit Crucible as we prepare to rescue them and do some annoying field skills along the way. Upon reaching the end, we get to another interesting fight against the Phantasms. So ideally, you want to kill them before they get to the health range to use Multis. Unfortunately, my damage was just shy of being able to do this. I tried to set up many fusion combos, but oftentimes they would still get to use Multis at very low HP. The result? This ended up being a very long fight. On the upside, I was able to get a lot of helpful experience despite having to do the full duration of the fight, as long as they kept using Multis until they eventually decided to quit. Thankfully, I was able to get through the fight without anyone else, and I was able to rack up a lot of extra experience. With Rex feeling remotivated, we head off to the cliffs of Morytha. While there, I pick up a male loincloth to put on Rex for a bit of extra damage, along with the crit healing medal, and discover this is the location we can finally fill out the final node on Kiko's chart. Upon doing that, I send her off on some Ursula Merc missions to fill out this node and go explore the world some to get some secret areas from extra bonus experience and skill points that I may need later if I end up being underleveled. Once the node is complete, I have Kiko at S rank, but I'm not done yet. I feed the rest of my love sources to her before replacing it with Narsapear Jelly again. This boosts Kiko all the way to S5, giving us a bigger boost to our auto attack stat and special damage, and now we are going to be ready to go. The first fight against Malice ends up being incredibly easy. I can use my evasion to dodge Monado Jail, Monado Eater, and Monado Buster, and besides that, he is hardly a threat at all. My increased damage makes short work of him once Monado Armor expires, and I continue on my way. The next fight against Jin and Malos goes even better. I'm able to get a strong Brack Abyss on Malos before he can even use armor, which instantly ends the fight in record time. It ended up being one of the best fights I could possibly have. The second phase of this fight forces me to use Numa and automatically gives me party members. As such, it is the exception to the rules of this run, as I mentioned at the start. You cannot die in this fight at all, you cannot drop below 1 HP, and you cannot swap blades. So using Numa is our only option for this fight. I do take a little advantage of this, knowing I'm absolutely going to need the experience for later, so I chain attack Jin near the end to get a big overkill and some much needed levels of experience. With Chapter 7 done, we finally get Mithra back, but we're still not going to use her. We swap right back to Kiko, continue on our quest. We see Jin having some trouble and decide to help him out. It's here we learn we cannot swap him out of the party right now, so once again we're forced to have a little bit of help. Luckily, Jin isn't really here for any big enemies, and we take out the single Guldo and then the multi-Guldos that follow by spamming Kiko's AoE level 2 as many times as we can and have a pretty easy time of it. Finally, we get to the Inferno Guldo fight. After making it past the first phase, Jin leaves us and our party returns. I cannot remove them either, so I try to death code out of the fight to remove them, only to learn that I still cannot remove them yet. So as an alternative, I let them die at the start of the fight and face down the Guldo myself. Everything goes smoothly for the majority of the fight, with me gradually reducing his health bar without any major issues. Towards the end, he uses a move I'm not familiar with. This move is called Elemental Bomb. Well, as it turns out, it's a move where he explodes and deals damage to himself. This move is enough to one-shot me, but since it also does damage to him and he was low on HP, it ends up draining the rest of his health bar in first and killing him first, meaning I win the fight based on a technicality. Naturally, it should not have been this close, and if I knew when to use my evasion art to dodge it, I would have, but that is besides the point. With the Inferno Guldo defeated, we start making our way up the world tree. The final fight of Chapter 8 is pretty much a cakewalk against some non-threatening enemies, and we're able to get to the climax of the game without much effort. Now there are only 6 required story fights the rest of the run. Jin, Amalthus, the 3 ghost fights, and Ion. I expected to have some trouble in the upcoming fights, but I definitely didn't think I'd need to do as much preparation as I needed to. I went to the end and made sure I leveled up my skill tree and arts as much as I could before Jin, but as it turns out, Jin was not going to go down easily, as everything else had been since Chapter 4. For the first time since then, I end up dying in a fight after my healing gets negated by Zero Zone and he wrecks my health bar. I try to fight him again and I'm able to get him under half HP and learn he has an evasion spike. Every time I miss an attack, he will do a lot of damage to me passively. Unfortunately, my Night Vision 1 was not cutting it anymore, as Jin's evasion was just too high, so I end up going to farm for a Night Vision 3 Aux Core off of a unique monster in Tantal. Once I'm able to get what I need, I go craft my prize, and for the much bigger accuracy bonus of 60% instead of 20%. With that done, I'm able to hit Jin virtually every time now, so I won't have to deal with his powerful spike damage at all. With these changes and smart uses of my evasion art to dodge his most dangerous attacks, I'm able to take him down. I'll be honest, I thought Jin would be the hardest part of the rest of the way, but nothing could have really prepared me for Amalthus being as much of a pain as he was, and the final of the 3 really hard parts of the run. So as it turned out, Amalthus does a lot of damage. His auto attacks alone could nearly one-shot me before Enrage, and afterwards if they crit, they would one-shot me completely. This means I need to have a really good evasion and healing to make sure I can make it through the fight. After a couple of attempts of realizing my current agility tier and healing was not enough, I go grab some assassin shoes from this treasure chest in Tantal, and then I go get an avant-garde medal from defeating this unique monster in the world tree. Finally, I go and defeat Skyfist Remington for another Pentagon chip, which I place on Corvin, who has a 20% agility mod, and with these changes I get to over 500 agility and can heal for 21% of the damage of my critical hits. It seems like I'll be able to push through the fight with these changes. Well, unfortunately, there's still one more problem. No amount of healing can save me from being one-shot, and all it takes is getting hit by one auto attack after he enrages to kill me. It seems my only option here is to level up. So with that in mind, I limit my grind as much as I can and get just enough experience to get one level higher, and this ends up making all the difference because of the difference in level penalty. Since I was now only 8 levels below Morytha, he does slightly less damage to me, and that is all I needed to defeat him. It still took 2 attempts afterwards because of some unlucky healing with my metal, and the fact that he has a lot of health to burn through, but eventually we get past Morytha and finally beat Chapter 9. In Chapter 10, we get to do 3 fights against our party member ghosts, and they are an absolute cakewalk. You're normally supposed to fight these alone without Myth or Enel, but we've been doing that the entire run, so naturally these guys have absolutely no way to beat us. With then done, our final obstacle in this run is the final boss, Ion. Since we're level 61, we don't need to worry about him doing huge extra damage to us since he's not 10 levels higher yet, but I still need to be careful and make sure I can use my evasion arts for his most dangerous attacks like Siren Buster. Ion's biggest annoying factor is that he has a massive amount of HP. Luckily, Phase 1 is able to go pretty quickly since he's weak to Dark Element, and he starts out this way in the Phase 2. Unfortunately, he'll enrage later on and go resistant to Dark Element, dragging out the rest of the fight. Luckily, with our accessories and damage, we're able to gradually wear him down while remaining healthy ourselves and dodging anything that could be an issue. When he gets low on HP, he finally ends up using Prometheus. I didn't even know the timing for this because I've never seen it in a fight before, so I end up using all 3 forms of my invincibility I had in my level 4 special, my chain attack, and my evasion art just to make sure it didn't end up hitting me and ending my run. Once that was over, the worst was through. I evaded a few more attacks and was finally able to push through the rest of his health bar. This time it only took 1 attempt. I had done it. I had beaten the game with Kiko the Common Blade. The total time it took was a little under 13 hours. Pretty impressive for only using 1 Common Blade the entire time. To be honest, I'm not sure what possessed me to want to do this, but I had a great time trying it out and seeing what I could do with the game. I'm unsure if I'll do any challenges like this in the future, but it'll be fun to see what else I may be able to do with this game or other games. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on the video because it really does help me out so much. I hope you guys learned something from watching this and might want to challenge yourselves also. Look forward to content on Definitive Edition on May 29th and beyond. With all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching and have a wonderful day.